Warning, content in this video may or will disturb some viewers. Images of a crime scene with gruesome evidence is shown. Viewer discretion is advised. In other words, there's going to be a dead body shown in this video, so you've been warned. Before we get into this video, if you like this kind of content, like I have said in the past, you may need to seek some help to find out why you are attracted to this content. But hey, no judgment here. This is a dark place. Dark people gravitate here. But my channel is not for the faint-hearted at times. So hit that big old like button and subscribe and turn notifications on if you want to see my work. I put videos out every Sunday/Saturday depending on where you live in the world, and sometimes I will do a sneaky little video on a Thursday depending on how my workflow is going. That being said, let's get on with the video. The Black Dahlia murder. One of history's most gruesome and longest unsolved murder. Elizabeth Short, best known as Black Dahlia, was a 22-year-old American woman that was one of 5 daughters, born in July 29th, 1924. She was an aspiring actress, but she never had any credits to her name. She moved from Florida to California in her early life to live with her father after doctors had told her that she needed to live in a more milder climate due to her issues with severe asthma and bronchitis. Her father actually faked his own death when she was only 6 years old. They found his car abandoned with him nowhere in sight. When she was 18 years old, he sent a letter to her mother apologizing for abandoning them. So this is when Elizabeth went to live with him. But they did argue a lot, so she moved out eventually. The 9th of January 1947, Elizabeth returned home after a short trip to San Diego with a 25-year-old married salesman named Robert Red Manley. He dropped her off at the Biltmore Hotel to meet her sister that had traveled from Boston to see her. Not long after that, Elizabeth was reported to be having a few drinks at the bar at the Cecil Hotel, which is renowned for murders and paranormal activity. Now that's going to be a separate video in itself eventually, and I will do one on the Cecil Hotel. After this is when Elizabeth went missing. The morning of the 15th of January 1947, Elizabeth's naked body was found by a local resident named Betty in Leimert Park at 10 a.m. while Betty was out with her 3-year-old daughter taking a walk. Betty thought that Elizabeth's body was just a dumped mannequin on the side of the road due to her porcelain-looking skin. When she realized it was a dead woman, she ran to find the nearest phone to call police. Elizabeth's body was severely mutilated. She was cut in half at the waist and drained of all blood, hence why Betty thought she was a mannequin at first. Her lower half was positioned a foot away from her upper half and was placed in a pose with both hands and arms above her head. Her intestines were placed neatly under her butt and her legs were spread apart. Elizabeth's face was also slashed from the corners of her mouth to her ears. This was known at that time to be the Glasgow smile, but as we know it in today's age, the Joker smile. The killer had washed her body down with gasoline to hide all fingerprints and evidence. The police did find a heel print and tyre tracks near the scene. The autopsy showed that the technique Elizabeth had been cut in half was known as a hemicorpectomy. Her spine had been severed at the second and third lumbar vertebrae. No bruising was found around the incision, so this was done after death. She had been bruised on her right side of her head. The cause of death was from hemorrhaging from the lacerations on her face and from the blow to her head. The 21st of January 1947, the killer rang the Examiner newspaper to congratulate their coverage on the case, stating that he planned on turning himself in eventually, but not until the police had pursued him first. He told James Richardson, the editor of the Examiner, to expect some of Elizabeth's belongings to be sent to him in the coming days. On the 24th of January 1947, a suspicious manila folder turned up addressed to the Los Angeles Examiner with notes that were constructed from cut-out letters from magazines stating, "Here is Dahlia's belongings. Letter to follow." The letter contained her birth certificate, business cards, photographs, and an address book with Mark Hansen on the front. The envelope had been carefully cleaned with gasoline, just like her body was, to hide any fingerprints of the killer. The same day that the package was received by the Examiner, Elizabeth's handbag and a single black suede shoe was found on a garbage can in Norton Avenue, 3 kilometres from where she was found, also cleaned with gasoline. On the 14th of March 1947, men's clothing was found at Breeze Avenue, Venice Beach, with an apparent suicide note in a shoe saying that he had been waiting for the cops to catch him, but they hadn't, and he was too much of a coward to turn himself in. So this was the best way out for him. It appeared that the killer had drowned himself, but no body was ever found. Elizabeth's roommate, Ann Toth, told police that Elizabeth had rejected Mark Henson, who was a nightclub owner at the time and was also the name on the address book that she had. So this is why they suspected him, but he was later cleared of all allegations. They ended up investigating and interviewing 150 men for her murder. Because of the nature in which she was cut in half and dissected, the LAPD declared that either a surgeon, doctor, or someone with extensive medical knowledge had done the crime. Now this leads to probably one of the biggest conspiracies involved in this murder case, which involved a physician named George Hoddle. Now, he was one of the suspects, and he is an American physician who was suspected of killing Elizabeth and also murdering his secretary as well. George was apparently having an affair with Elizabeth at the time of her murder. There was an apparent 8 witnesses that confirmed Hoddle and Short's affair. In 1950, George's residence was electronically bugged by the LAPD. The tapes recorded him saying, "Supposing I did kill the Black Dahlia. They can't prove it now. They can't talk to my secretary anymore because she's dead. They thought there was something fishy. Anyway, now they may have figured it out. Killed her. Maybe I did kill my secretary." In 1999, Hoddle died at the age of 91. His son Steve Hoddle, which is an LAPD homicide detective, started investigating his father as a possible suspect. Steve is convinced that his father did it and considered the case closed, but family members of Elizabeth and an LAPD detective called Brian Carr are not convinced that the woman in George's photo albums are Elizabeth. Now, what they did was they found a photo album in George's residence, and it has this woman's face in it. And I've looked at it, and I personally think it is not Elizabeth. It is a totally different woman. I will have the pictures on the screen. Let me know what you think, because I don't think it's her. It's not her. So I don't think that particular, I'm not saying that he'd never had an affair with her, I'm just saying that these photos are definitely not of Elizabeth. Unfortunately, Steve's evidence is too weak, even though his father's handwriting matches the letters that police received after Elizabeth's murder. And there is still fears today that this murder is never going to be solved. This is a very scary case. Like I've known about this case for a while, but I never knew what was involved in it and what had actually happened to this poor woman. And when I started looking at all the photos and everything, I was just absolutely shocked. Like, honestly, I haven't included all the photos. If you want to Google this yourself and be completely disturbed, by all means go for it, because there is autopsy table pictures on Google. Just turn restricted mode off so you can see it. There is everything. Like, there is just more in-depth morgue photos of her, also ones of her laying on the side of the road. There's a lot more that I didn't include because I just didn't want to go overboard with the photos. I just wanted to get the message across of what actually happened to her. I didn't want to show everything. And there is so much to this story. I've touched every topic in the across her information of what actually happened to her, but there is so much more detailed information on the internet that if you want to go and have a look at it yourself, do it. It's a big read of everything. I covered the main information, but nothing else, because these videos would be very, very long if I covered everything. So I just want to give the main details across and all that sort of stuff. And then if you are curious from this video, go and have a look at it yourself, because it is truly, it's interesting, but it is fucked up. It is so bad. So my mother had a bit of a theory with this murder case after I showed her some of the pictures, and I was telling her about how no blood whatsoever found at the crime scene. My mother's theory, and I sort of had this inkling as well, but when she said it, I was like, oh my God. When you have a look, if you go into Google and you have a look at her body, and from some of the angles of looking at her torso cut in half, it's very, very eerily similar to the cattle mutilations that have been happening across the world over quite a few, couple of hundred years. Then you have all her blood completely drained. Now the cattle mutilations were exactly the same, not one drop of blood, completely drained. So this sort of my mother was sort of thinking maybe this was, a supernatural, alien occurrence that happened back then to a human being. Now this could have been, like, she could have been just chosen to have this experiment done to her. And there's other factors into the investigation that you sort of think, oh no, a piece of shit human being did this. You know, surely it wouldn't have been like aliens doing this sort of stuff with the cat, like doing the cattle mutilations, because she never had any sort of like reproductive organs missing. She had nothing missing organ wise. It was just her blood. So unless that was they wanted her blood for some reason, I don't know. That's just a theory. With the illustration that I have done for this topic today, I decided to do a picture of Elizabeth, but I decided to turn it into a sort of like a monster with her, incorporate that cut sort of mouth that she had, that Joker smile with monstrous teeth. Now the monstrous side of it that you see in the illustration is portrayed because I wanted to portray the monstrous act that was done to her. Like, it's just horrific what was done to her. And then obviously everything else is like of a beautiful woman, and then at the bottom where she's got her, you know, shoulders cut, there's obviously some intestines, sort of like, you know, gross things hanging down that's I just wanted to incorporate as well into the illustration, and just sort of capture the absolute horrific manner in which she was mutilated. And that's basically what this picture and this illustration portrays for me. Disturbing story. There's going to be more of these coming. I really have been enjoying learning about the completely horrible stuff that goes on in this world, and all the different things that that's like paranormal and alien and crime. Like anyone who's been on my channel for a while, you would know that I was never a big true crime person, but probably the last year or so I've sort of been really getting into it. That is it from me. I am out of here, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.